Hello, ladies, and welcome back to all of our Women with Wings. We have 67 people registered tonight, so it's going to be a great evening, and it is so exciting to see so much interest. First off, I'd like to introduce Kathy Moore from the Travel Group. Kathy and her husband, David Elmy, are the owners of the Travel Group, and they're longtime colleagues and friends. And we share a vision and we share a passion for our industry. So we feel very, very good about our relationship. It's great to have Kathy here tonight. She's going to be learning more about Women with Wings. And best news of all is that she's a newfie. So she was able to give me lots of advice in putting together the Newfoundland trip. So Kathy, welcome. Welcome to Women with Wings.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. And thanks very much, Cindy. It's a real pleasure to be getting the chance to work more with Cindy. That now we have known each other a long time. And yes, I think we have very similar ways of doing business. We found from working together and more. Yes, I'm a Newfoundlander, a Newfie. And I just tell you that my very first trip ever was with my mother, and it was her first trip ever. And we took the Newfie Bullet across Newfoundland, and I never looked back. I wanted to travel forever. And my mother never, ever wanted to leave Newfoundland again. She had to, because all of her children did. But anyway, there we are. And yes, I have a great love for Newfoundland and for travel, and I'm so glad that we're all getting back to it. So thanks, and nice to be working with you all.
Thanks, Kathy. We're going to start tonight with a brief update from the team, and with each of them just telling you how they managed to get through the pandemic on a personal level, because I know for many of you, you know your leaders as friends, and I'm sure that you've been wondering how they've been getting through. Throughout the webinar, we're going to be putting up some poll questions for you to answer, and this is a way of us capturing the interest in different parts of what we're doing. We're not asking for any commitments, just asking you to answer some questions so that we can use the information in going forward. We're going to ask you to keep any questions and post them at the end of the presentation under the Q&A. And what we'll do is we'll answer them by email or e-blast after the meeting, so that A, we can answer them fully, and B, that we manage to get through the whole program and not send anybody off because they're bored. So that's the way we're going to handle questions. So I think, first of all, Hannah's got a question for us.
I sure do. For everyone that's joined us, have you traveled with Women with Wings before, or were you on one of our canceled tours in 2020? This will go on for 1 minute, and then I'll end the polling once I see everyone's answered their questions. Thank you. Okay, thank you so much. I'm just going to share our results here. Looks like the majority of you have traveled with us before. That's fantastic.
Great, and only 10% that have not. Great, thank you. That's a terrific start. You know, as we begin to come out of the pandemic and think about our personal future, I've really been thinking about and recognizing that I've never actually ever given myself time to be completely still, just totally, completely still, mind-numbingly still. And that's a rare, rare gift. So what I did is, because we left up Indian Arm and I'm definitely a water baby, I went off and bought a paddleboard. And so I find myself floating up and down the Arm along the same beach that we walk all the time and have sped by for many, many years in bigger boats, and just look at things from a different perspective. It's been really good for me to just sort of turn everything around 180 degrees, and I'm very appreciative of that. But because balance is important, we also went out and bought a new speedboat, which we are going to use to tow our beloved grandchildren on once Dr. Bonnie here gets us out. So that's my little insight as to how we passed the last few months. It's my great pleasure to introduce Ruth Payne. Ruth is our art and architecture expert. She and I have been running art tours around the world for over 20 years. And she does a lot of our Women with Wings programs as well. Everything Ruth does is with an eye to sustainable travel, which is, she was one of the early believers, and we look to her for guidance on a lot of those things. So Ruth, how did you get through the pandemic?
Cindy and everybody, it's wonderful to be with you tonight talking about travel finally. So how did I get through the pandemic? Well, I did obviously miss all the hugs and the up close and personal, but as Cindy said, for me, it was about slowing everything down, and it really did, I felt, give me permission to explore the introvert in me. I tend to run around in different events and art activities, and I focus more on one-on-one conversations and daily walks with people. A lot of these ladies were Women with Wings tour people, and it was wonderful. We reminisced, we caught up, we dreamed about the future, and lots of walking and hiking. So it was great. That offset all the bread we were all making. And I even had Christmas dinner outdoors. I decided I couldn't go to Mexico this winter, so I made my little outdoor patio enclosed and bought a heater, and I decorated it like Mexico, like a Mexican cantina. So I had dinner outside, and it was wonderful. I completely embraced the Vancouver winter. And the other wonderful opportunity that came out of this was being able to help friends of ours working in the travel industry in Bali in particular, and also in Cambodia. Cindy was a part of this. A number of women, we got together and we sent money to support 3 families who we know. One was a guide on our Women with Wings Bali tour. And they not only fed themselves and took care of themselves, but they created community projects. They relearned ikat weaving. They've created a coffee business from coffee bushes they found in their gardens, and Manuka honey businesses, and it goes on and on and on. So that has been incredibly meaningful, and that's ongoing till the end of September. We support that. And I also was able to support a driver I had in Cambodia to go to Angkor Wat. He has the family of 5, and they had 0 money, 0 food. So I'm supporting them for the duration, and I've been enjoying that. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Jennifer Hewlett. Jennifer has spent her career leading women on their own fitness journeys, from snowshoeing to kayaking, to paddleboarding, to hiking, even cruising in Croatia. Jen's incredible spirit soars, and she always is a bundle of energy. Jennifer, over to you.
Thank you. Hello, ladies. So lovely to be back to spread our wings and gather in this setting. It's new for all of us. And I wanted to share my journey with you over the last several months, year. As a longtime resident of the North Shore, my husband and I moved from Deep Cove, our family home, to Cultus Lake. My husband was transferred to the area of Fraser Valley. It was new for us. So we moved from our family home to a very small little lake cottage. So lots of new, lots of fresh, and a lot of quiet. And I've discovered that I became very, very good at listening at the surroundings around me. I was on my own a lot. I'm not a natural introvert. I tend to enjoy people for so many different reasons. And what I discovered when I lived out here, or now that I'm here, is there were so many women who also, like myself, had recently moved to the community. And I love combining fresh air and friendship. So I did it on the North Shore for 30 years and met some of my dearest friends. And to this day, it's just, my heart is full. And I knew I couldn't get back to the North Shore regularly. So I thought, I'm just going to reach out and make some new friends. And the older you get, the harder it is to make new friends. But I thought, darn it, anyways, I'm just going to get out there. And before you know it, I just started collecting all these lovely ladies' phone numbers, and emails and conversations started. So now we have Ladies of the Lake. We have over 40 ladies at the lake here that are part of our group, and it's fresh air and friendship. It's non-competitive. We walk, we phone each other if somebody needs a glass of wine, if you need to borrow a book. This is all new for this group of women here at the lake. So it was a really wonderful opportunity for me to rather feel sorry for myself and wanting to go back home to create a new home and a new beginning. And something that I love to do is meet people and embrace connections. So as I sit back now at the lake, I can now look and see that there's many people now that know each other, and the summer looks bright, and the future is even brighter, and perhaps they too will be members of our Women with Wings travel team. So that is my story. I hope to see many of you in the next year to come. So as I move forward, I'm going to introduce Hannah. Hannah, I've known for several years. She's been behind the scenes for quite some time, but she's now moving forward. She really has been our secret weapon. Some of you know her, some of you are getting to know her, but she is just an absolute delight. She is now involved from the get-go, all the way from planning, budgeting, and Hannah's now leading groups as well. So it's just such a pleasure to delight Cindy's right-hand arm. And I think Cindy, she really is your secret weapon, and we love her dearly. So Hannah, over to you.
Thank you. So nice. Well, during my pandemic story was, I think I spent the pandemic like a lot of other people. I really got into cooking and baking and gardening at the beginning. I usually plan, long elaborate meals where I spend hours cooking and use all the dishes in our kitchen. So instead of having 6 people over for dinner, it was just my boyfriend and I, but we got through it. I even tried my hand at making croissants, which was a complete disaster. I'm going to leave that up to the experts now, but it was really fun. At one point, I had to trade soap for yeast with my landlord because we had that yeast shortage, if anyone remembers that. The biggest thing that happened to me in the pandemic was I moved up to Squamish in May, and I moved into a school bus that my boyfriend and I converted into a tiny house. So we're now living in a bus. Her name's Fern, and she's an old school bus. She was actually used for school, and then she was used at Canadian Outback Rafting, this rafting company up here in Squamish. So we've been living in it for a full year, all 4 seasons, so we know what to expect now in the winter. It's been fantastic living up in Squamish during the pandemic, totally different experience than in North Van. North Van, I was in a basement suite, so it was very dark, didn't have immediate access to the outdoors. And up here, I could just pop up on my rooftop deck and have a coffee amongst the trees, listen to the birds. It's just, relaxing. It's amazing. So we've been living in the bus, going for hikes around Squamish. We recently bought a paddleboard, so we've been doing that a little bit. And we're just looking forward to traveling around BC, hopefully outside of BC when we're allowed to, and just exploring what we can. That's it for me. That's my pandemic experience. I'm now going to pass you off to Colleen and Estella. Colleen is our adventure expert. She's led tours to Vietnam, Cambodia, Myanmar, and Argentina. And Estella, she was born and educated in Buenos Aires. Together, they're our dynamic duo. I'm going to pass it off over to you guys now.
So when COVID happened, our trip that we're relooking at now was canceled, and my work came to a screeching halt. I'm a graphic designer, and a lot of my work was for conferences back east. That was the bad part of it. The good part of it was that my parents, my dad has since passed away, but they are quite old, and I got to look after them for 8 months, which was amazing until they both went into a nursing home. Being a graphic designer, I always work with a client in mind, and I have a deadline and a budget to stay in. So COVID allowed me to start doing watercolors again, which I haven't done since I was in fine arts 40 years ago at Langara. So that has been amazing as well. I also, which Stella will explain, started teaching. And 2 years ago, I adopted a greyhound, So my saving grace that my dog got me out 4 days a week with COVID. And it's amazing what the parks were like with COVID. I could hear the birds. It was something, and I knew that that will never probably happen again. So there was good and bad. And to me now that we've come full circle, I think it's been really good.
So because of the nature of my work, I really never stopped working altogether because 50% of my work is at home. So that never ended, but it did cut down to half. And like most of Vancouver, I learned how to make a sourdough starter and to make bread. I haven't bought a loaf for a year and a half. But because my husband and I are going to cross Canada in a few years, I wanted to find a way of being able to log the trip. And I had painted before with oils and acrylics, but I wanted something light and that would dry immediately, not after 3 days. So Colleen is teaching me watercolors, and she's great. And it's a way of keeping in touch and being together.
But there's a twist
Yeah.
because I made her promise that she would start teaching me Spanish, and my Spanish classes at the community center where I live were canceled because of COVID. So I tricked her into starting Spanish lessons. with
So
me.
now it's a cross teaching. So that's my experience.
Then it's back to Cindy. Thank you so much.
Thanks, ladies. You know, upon reflection, I realized how lucky my husband and I were to travel in the 70s when things were wide open and carefree. And the transition that we've seen since then, it's just enormous, as all of you know. One of the things that we've always done is supported the locals, whether we're traveling with family or with groups or with clients. And, you know, we've built wells in Asia and done a number of different things, but consistently, we haven't done it well enough. And this stillness project that I spoke about earlier has really made me realize that that's something that we need to build into more carefully on the Women with Wings programs. So moving forward, what we're going to do is we're going to have a local budget on every tour. And we're going to research that area and find an appropriate, don't like to use the word charity, but the appropriate nonprofit. And that might be as simple as children's lunches in a big city, children that are in need. It could be supporting a women's shelter. It could be an animal research project. Whatever the leader feels is a good focus for that particular trip. And it could be, as Ruth does, supporting some local families simply by giving them cash to trusted people and knowing that they will use it to enhance their own lifestyle. So that's a really positive thing for us to work on. We're also going to use get to know our global partners that much better. We've always kept in touch with our guides, and as Ruth has said, we've supported a number of them through the pandemic, and we'll continue to do so. But we're going to tighten those connections because I think that's really important to all of us, and I think you heard that through the leaders tonight. Sorry. So that was the feel-good part. This is the reality check. Where do we go and how do we get there? Quite honestly, our industry is still really in shreds. There's no doubt about it. We know that the marketing machines for the cruise lines and the tour companies have massive budgets and big, sophisticated programs. But at a grassroots level, we're just not there yet. The tour companies all have to rely on their hoteliers. Everybody in tourism is working with a skeleton staff, so you can't get any answers quickly. And it's not for lack of trying on any level. It's just that everybody has to rely on somebody else who has to rely on the answer for that comes from somebody else. So it's very difficult right now to pull things together. Having said that, it is getting better every week as the vaccines roll out in the countries that are lucky enough to have access to them. So things are going to start to move quickly. And we want to be ready to hop really when we have the information that we need. Our plan moving forward, obviously, will be to respect all of the federal and provincial guidelines, no matter what country we're visiting in. And in order to ensure that everybody is safe, all of our guests will have to show proof of a full vaccination before we process a registration. So that's going to become the new norm. We also know that insurance is top of mind for everybody, as well as flexibility to do with cancellations. Boy, we're sure aware of that. The challenge that we have is that, as you know, our specialty is working with a number of different suppliers and putting everything together to come up with a truly unique and unusual package. We love serendipitous moments. We love being able to say, oh, but this is going on in town tomorrow. Can we switch this around and be able to do that? And you can only do that if you're running a private tour. That's the reality. So the challenge with that is that it puts us at the mercy of the supplier we're using. So that might be the boat that we've rented in France. It might be the bus that we chartered, the coach in Argentina. Every single one of those suppliers will have their own terms and conditions, and some of them are more punitive than others. So we have to respect those guidelines too. But we promise you that we will do everything to present all of the information succinctly and in an easy to understand way so that you know what you're purchasing. And we'll certainly recommend that you purchase trip cancellation insurance and out of province country medical insurance as well. So those will be the guidelines that are kind of going forward. So now let's have some fun, okay? We're gonna start with Jen, and she's gonna take us off to the Yukon.
Sorry, Cindy, I'm just gonna hop in there. I'm really curious to find out if our ladies are interested in traveling to Canada or or internationally. And then Jen, we'll get to you really quickly.
Thanks, Anna.
Thank you. If you wouldn't mind answering these two questions, would you travel to in 2022 internationally, which includes the US, or would you prefer traveling in Canada? Follow up to that, if you're more comfortable traveling in Canada in 2022, where are you interested in traveling to? Still getting a few answers in, so I'll just leave it a little bit longer. Okay, thank you all. Just share these results here with you. Interesting.
Oh, it is interesting.
Wow.
Look at that, Maritimes. Kathy, I bet you like that. Everyone going back to your hometown. Well, thank you so much for answering those two questions. And Cindy, I'll pass it back on to you.
So Jen, would you update us on the Yukon in France, please?
Yes, thank you. Well, welcome to the Yukon. I can see 26% of you are interested. I'm hoping that we'll get the crew together. I was at the Yukon trip in 2020, so I can certainly speak to this. We are heading to the Yukon February 2022, and I must say it's 4 days of absolute delight. We arrive in Whitehorse. We are picked up by this fantastic van and off we go to the Boreal Ranch, which is about 45 minutes from Whitehorse. As you can see here, there's the hot tub. Yes, it's -32. And yes, we did walk through the snow and sit in that hot tub in -32-degree weather. Mountain ranges everywhere. There's just not, the scenery is incredible. I'm so excited. I'm so excited about this trip because it was just really a once in a lifetime opportunity. There's a young couple that own the ranch and they renovated. The rooms are exquisite. The food is outstanding. You can see with the gear here, you do not need to go to MEC to get outfitted. When you arrive, we are all given the Arctic gear. You can see the boots, the jackets, the pants, the gloves. So you are toasty warm all day long, regardless if it's -32. So this is a fun group picture here. We were in Carcross that day. We have a variety of outings. Obviously, the big outing day is our dog sledding. And the dog sledding, we go off site for that. You can see here there's 47 dogs on site when we arrived. It was quite a spectacle. They were all barking at once to greet us. It was quite something, and just a phenomenal woman who runs the show there. She's a 4-time Iditarod finisher, so it's just remarkable. And I'll tell you this, you are actually going to dog sled. I thought we would just be watching this whole event. Oh, no. We are in the bucket and we are straddling and guiding ourselves. And so when those dogs hear the word mush, you are gone. And I must say, I was screaming my head off because I was frightened, nervous, and it was so exhilarating. I can't even tell you. I've water skied and snow skied, and this is better than both of those combined. So off we went. A couple of hours, you'd switch off. It was cold, but you kept warm just because all the cozy blankets and the guides keep you safe. And after we finish the dog sledding, we go into this very, very historic cabin where the woman who owns the ranch, the dog ranch, lives. And it's really something out of a novel. So I can't even explain it. You have to actually physically be there to experience it. So the dog sledding's great. The ranch is incredible. You can, if you want to, I know a couple of my friends were staring at that fat bike. The fat tires are maybe about like this wide. And yes, you can ride your bike in the snow all through the trails. There's snowshoes on site. The food is exquisite. Young gals in the area of Whitehorse come and they cook their family special dinners, meals, secret recipes. So it's all very homemade. We all sit at a big community table. We have gorgeous dinners, conversation. It's a small group. I think we take 11 or 12. So it's not a big setting, and a big roaring fireplace all night long, lots of good conversation. So between the dog sledding and of course the Northern Lights, you're not always guaranteed. We did see them. There's an outdoor platform, which is fantastic. We have a walkie-talkie in our room. And so you go to sleep and all of a sudden they have what's called an aurora detective. And they have volunteers that stay up all night. And as soon as they see the lights, the walkie-talkie in your room goes off and you'll hear, "Hello, ladies. Does anybody want to see the lights?" And all of a sudden you're transformed into a firefighter because you're up and in your pajamas and you're in your winter gear and you're outside in, I think, 6 minutes flat. And many of our ladies had fantastic cameras that could capture the dancing lights. And so we were out there, I think at 1:30 in the morning or 2:30 in the morning, and it's warm and it's just absolutely mystical, which is incredible. So this gives you an idea. So fingers crossed in February, we'll be lucky enough to see the lights. So we have the lights and the dog sledding. This is the wildlife reserve. And we go through the day, half a day, guided tour in a bus. It was warm enough last year for us to walk in some of it, saw some incredible scenes, beautiful animals that you wouldn't normally see just as you drive through Whitehorse and in the north. So that was quite interesting. And the guide was very informative, telling us lots of different things about the animals and the habitat. The bottom picture is the very old picture of the hot springs. That hot spring has been maybe 30, 40 years. It was very old and antiquated, and they were in the process of building the new hot springs, the Tahini Hot Springs. It will be open next year. It was open this year, but it will be really big, and the hot water is just incredible, and it's so comforting after a day out in the cold weather, and lovely setup. We had relatively warm weather when we were there, but if it's super cold, you can do some really fun things with your hair. This picture here, another fantastic day trip. It's to Carcross. It's a very small First Nations community, about 310 people that live there, and a world renowned carver. We go and see him into his carving wood shop for about 2 hours, and he goes through all of his carvings. When Will and Kate were here, they also went to see him. He was that famous, and they spent an hour with him when they were here for the Olympics, I believe. So that is Carcross. Beautiful, beautiful place. So I think we've kind of covered it all. It's a fast trip. It's a beautiful trip. It's a 2-hour flight to Whitehorse, and then off we go to the ranch, and we get all geared up and we're outside and experiencing the northern part of BC, which many people haven't gone to. It's interesting. Many of my clients have traveled all over the world. And the feedback that I had from most of them was that it was one of their top 10 trips that they've ever taken. So I encourage you all to consider traveling in Canada and supporting the fine people in Whitehorse. So may the lights be with you. So, and here we are. So we're going to go from the Yukon, and we're going now to France. France is a trip that's going to be September 2022. It was on our books last year. Obviously, we could not go. It is a 2-week trip. And this 2-week trip will take us week 1, a bike and barge. So the barge, I will tell you, it is air conditioned. I repeat, there is air conditioning on this boat, which is a really good selling feature. So week 1, we will be on the boat in the evenings, and during the day, we will be biking. And we will have a local guide that will be with us. And the bike riding, can either do a regular bike or you can upgrade to an e-bike. Many people are doing that these days. And the biking, I looked at the kilometers. We do as little as 25K or as much as 50K in a day. But keep in mind, that's a very long day. And we will stop and start points of interest, coffee shops, vineyards. So there's nothing competitive here. So don't let that overwhelm you, but it is important to know that that's the segment of time. The trip starts in Navarre. So it is, I think, 2.5 hours from Paris. So we will get from Paris to this location and we'll spend a week experiencing beautiful countryside and back to the barge. The week 2, we will then go to the southern area of Provence, and we will have a walking guide with us for the entire time, a local, which is fantastic. The locals just give us lots of little goodies that you wouldn't normally get in a big setting. So we will have a 6-hour train ride from when we leave the bike and barge. We will get then to the southern area of Provence, and we will stay in this area, and we will go to little boutique hotels throughout our journey with this walking tour. And we will go to unique gardens, the farmlands, the vineyards. There's cafes and medieval sites, and these quaint little boutique hotels will just be a lovely combination. And again, I've looked at the kilometers that we walk. The elevation doesn't seem to be too excessive, but we are going to be walking again anywhere from 12 kilometers to 30 kilometers. I think it said during the course of the week. So again, that's spread out over a very long time frame. So it is an active holiday. We will be biking the first week and light walking the second week. So because I haven't done the trip, I can't speak to elevation and or the ground surfaces, whether they're cobblestone and or whether they are groomed trails. I don't know that now, but I can certainly find that out if any of you are interested in our France trip. So I encourage you to think about it. And I live here out in Cultus Lake, and there's some great bike rides. And if this trip does go ahead, I will encourage people to get together to ride in advance on the Stanley Park Seawall or come out to Chilliwack and ride on some of our beautiful trails and very flat farmland here. So thank you for your time, and thank you for your consideration of these 2 trips. I'm excited, and I'm going to pass this off to Ruth now. And Ruth, I believe, is off to Santa Fe. She is our Santa Fe specialist and off to Mexico possibly. So without any further ado, thank you, Ruth.
Thank you, Jennifer. Santa Fe. Well, in 2020, we did have a sold out tour booked to go to Santa Fe, and we had to cancel that, of course. So we're looking ahead, hopefully next year, hopefully in 2022, we can do it in the fall. And of course, Santa Fe, I think, is on everyone's bucket list. It was on my bucket list before I went there, and now I've been 8 times, and I can never get enough of this magical city in New Mexico, as well as the other destinations that we go to. We visit art galleries, artisan markets. There's 400 restaurants in Santa Fe, and many of them are world-class. We do learn how to roast the perfect chili at the Santa Fe School of Cooking. We tour exquisite adobe homes that have impressive art collections. We also have 2 full days outside of Santa Fe. One is we drive along the Rio Grande River in a very comfortable coach. We go to Taos, and at Taos we visit the 1,000-year-old Pueblo and visiting historic villages along the way, stopping at the Rio Grande River for a picnic. Another day is trip north of Santa Fe. We go to the very small village of Abiquiu, which is where Georgia O'Keeffe, the famed artist that settled in New Mexico, where she made her home. And we have a private tour of her home that looks out on exactly this landscape that you see here, the mesa and the mountains. And we also tour Ghost Ranch, have a beautiful lunch there, and we're taken out and shown the exact vistas that she painted. Very, very inspiring. And there's also opportunities to individualize it for yourself. You could do hot air ballooning, which you know is really popular in New Mexico. One of our clients did it one year and she had a great time. You get up at 5 in the morning, off you go. Or hiking is terrific. And also there's many world-class spas there. You could have a spa experience. This is a easy tour as far as walking. It's mostly flat walking. You are at altitude, you are at 7,000 feet, but you accustom to that quickly, and it's like those huge vivid blue skies and the gorgeous, you know, adobe landscape. You do feel kind of very settled and grounded easily, and you want to walk there. And then it's mostly flat. And our coaches that we travel in are very comfy. They're fairly small. The one highlight is our complimentary happy hour at the beautiful Inn on the Alameda that we stay in. It has this adobe architecture that you're looking at here. And it's a perfect place to get to know your travel companions over wine and cheese. And so I hope to enjoy Santa Fe with you. Those of you that missed the tour in 2020, I hope you're back on board. And I just can't wait. I'm really excited. And I'm also going to talk to you a little bit about our Dia de los Muertos tour. We did this in 2019 in the end of October, November. So this is a very extra special time to visit Mexico. It's celebrating Day of the Dead. So it's honoring, celebrating. It's virtually an incredible party, as well as about honoring the ancestors, your friends, your loved ones, your family that have passed on. The people believe that their spirits are closer to the earth. They come back to visit, and they create special meals, special foods. There's amazing parades, festivities, costumes, face painting. This is in the Zocalo here in Mexico City. So this tour is 13 days, 13 nights, 12 days. And we visit Mexico City. We go to Frida Kahlo's museum and home, Diego Rivera's. We look at there's famous murals, and we also go to, and of course, incredible restaurants there, trips on the canals you see here on this boat, so colorful. And I'm cutting it down here. There's so much to say about Mexico City. But then we have a coach tour off to San Miguel de Allende, and that's just a few hours, which is the beautiful town really focused on art and the incredible Spanish colonial architecture. And here we visit artist studios, and we have cooking. We have a full day of cooking class, and it's a town of cobblestones. You just want to walk, you just want to eat it up. It's jam-packed with cultural discovery. We have one day we go outside of San Miguel de Allende on a historic hacienda tour. And then we have a beautiful lunch and mezcal and tequila tasting out in the vineyards. It's beautiful. And the last colonial city that we go to is just an hour from San Miguel de Allende, and that is Guanajuato. And it is another, as well as San Miguel de Allende, UNESCO Heritage Site. And it, you can see why, is voted as the most picturesque town in Mexico. And these brightly colored buildings, they just spill down the mountainside, and the very narrow laneways with restaurants hanging over them and cobblestones, beautiful plazas and squares. It feels a little bit like Italy. So we end up there and we fly home from Lyon, and that is a really cultural activity packed 13 nights, 12-day tour. So that we don't have a date on yet, but it'll be in the next few years. And I know that you just love to come. It'll be wonderful. So that's me for now. And I am going to, who's up next here? Okay, so it's over to Colleen Wood and Estella Docil, and they are our Argentina experts, and you've already heard and been introduced about them. So over to you both.
Hi, so I'll start. We did have a trip to Argentina last year, 2020, that was fully booked, and of course had to let it go because of COVID. But now the plan is October 2022, and we've chosen
2023.
Sorry, my mistake. 2023, and we've chosen that time of the year because it is climate-wise the best for the areas we will be visiting, and also it is the best to visit the animals in Peninsula Valdés, which is one of our destinations. So we will fly straight into Buenos Aires, capital of Argentina, Paris of South America. As you know, I grew up there, and in Buenos Aires we have 3 nights, and we will do all the highlights, of course, and we will have a city tour. We will have a food tour, which is in a lovely old part of Buenos Aires, and we will also have an evening with a dinner and a live orchestra and tango. And if we are lucky enough to be there on a Sunday, we will be able to visit the Gaucho Fair, which is a wonderful place.
So from Buenos Aires, we take a short 2-hour flight due west to Mendoza. And that's at the foothill of the Andes. And Mendoza's world famous for having the best and oldest wineries in Argentina. We'll be staying at a vineyard and a winery. It's from the early 20th century. And we'll be visiting probably about 4 or 5 different wineries. And in Mendoza, 2/3 of the wine in the whole country come from Mendoza. So it's really going to be amazing to see that.
So from Mendoza, we will go overland. We will be traveling north and east, and we will be staying for 3 nights in our Pied Teresa hotel, which is simple, but it's in a beautifully desolate, desertic, sort of lonely area, because from there we will have the opportunity to visit 2 of Argentina's UNESCO World Heritage Sites. One is in the province of San Juan. It's Izchigualasto, and the name in English is Valley of the Moon. And I think that photograph gives you an idea of why the landscape is very lunar, to say it somehow. And in Valley of the Moon, we have dinosaur fossils and minerals that come from the Triassic period. And then just a bit further north in the province of La Rioja, which we call the Red Province because of the color of the earth, we'll go to Talampaya, which is another UNESCO World Heritage Site. And in Talampaya, they have found the oldest remains of dinosaurs. So this is an incredible visit. It is unique setting, very different to Mendoza and Buenos Aires. And from that area, we will travel to the city of La Rioja, which is the capital of the province, where we will catch a plane and go to Buenos Aires.
So Buenos Aires, because we went there at the beginning of the trip, we don't stay. It's the hub for all the internal flights in Argentina. So then we do a 2-hour flight due south to the Valdés Peninsula, and that's also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's a natural reserve. There's 250 miles of coastal shoreline, and it is world famous for the southern right whale, the orca, elephant seals, sea lions, and they also have the Magellan penguins, which if we're able to, we'll go teeny little bit further south. It's about a 1 hour drive, and there are thousands of them, and October is actually the best time to visit them. So in Valdez, we'll stay 3 nights approximately, and then we fly back to Buenos Aires.
And from Buenos Aires, we just take a coach and we will go to an estancia in the province. It's called El Umbu. An estancia is our name for a big ranch. And in this estancia, which is situated close to a town, a small quaint town called San Antonio de Areco, we will have 3 nights, and we will be able to do any amount of activities, from horseback riding to bird
Hiking and
watching.
bird watching, and we can do tours into San Antonio de Areco if we like to. And they also put on the estancias that we're staying at is from 1880s, and they have working gauchos that are there, and they put on shows every day, folkloric music and dancing, and they have the famous asado, which is my favorite.
Which is the cherry on the top. And with the asado, our trip will come to an end. Our trip will be 2 weeks, and we hope you will be joining us, and we'll have an opportunity to go together in October of 2023. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Or, sorry.
That's okay. I'm going to be talking to you about our trip to Portugal next year. Last year we had an itinerary planned for also October, but of course that couldn't happen. So we're planning it for next year. The trip was very similar, but different at the same time. The small group tour companies that we're working with now no longer offer customized itineraries. So that means last year we were able to customize particularly the hiking portion to make it shorter or longer or different scenery, depending what we thought our group's hiking abilities were. However, for next year, we are offering a private departure, but it's on a set itinerary that's already been pre-planned. So that's generally just the differences are about the hiking portion, but I'll get to that in a moment. So the first week is a city and cultural stay, and we start in Porto and end in Lisbon. And in between, we'll be visiting all sorts of towns, have some port tasting, lunch at a winery, some gorgeous scenery, small towns to visit. This is a very fast-paced itinerary where we will have a guided tour in the morning, followed by free time in the afternoon, transfer to the next town, and free time in the evening, and so on until our 7 days are up. Then we'll transfer to the Western Algarve, where we'll have our 1 week of hiking along the coast. Now, this is where the itinerary is a little bit different than last year. Instead of hiking between 6 and 9 kilometers a day, it'll be between 9 and 13 kilometers. The ascent and descent is between 200 and 470 meters elevation change. And that's generally because we'll be starting high up on the cliff and making your way down to the water below. This is about 3.5 hours to 4.5 hours, just depending on the group's hiking ability, how many stops you want to take for water and snacks and swimming opportunities. As you can see from these photos, the hiking paths are generally undulating. There are no long, challenging climbs. The terrain can be exerting because of the sandy trails and the rugged cliff tops. This may be considered a little bit more challenging than last year because of that sandy terrain and also the distance, longer distances of hiking. That's just a short little snippet about Portugal, and we'll hopefully have some more information for you soon. I'm just going to start a little poll just based on that information about the hiking. If you could tell me, please, what you think about the hiking ability. Okay, thanks so much. Looks like most of you have answered by now. We'll share the results here. Varied responses on this one,
Mhm.
but we'll work through it.
Great.
Okay, thank you so much. And I'm now going to pass you on to Cindy. Tell us all about Newfoundland, Cindy.
All right, back to the circle. Last summer, when we ran the informal survey, we found that over 40 women were interested in Newfoundland, which was just fascinating to us. So we know that there really is a lot of interest. So we've come along quite far with this tour, and Kathy and I put together what we thought would be a really interesting Women with Wings tour. So it would include, of course, lots of culture, lots of outdoor time, lots of interesting food experiences, iceberg viewing, the best really that Newfoundland has to offer, but with the Women with Wings touches like private visits and that kind of thing. I'm going to shorten this because I can see that time's marching on and we've got a little bit to go yet. But generally speaking, this would be a 12-night program that would start on the West Coast in Corner Brook, which is just about a 40-minute drive from Deer Lake Airport. And the tour would work its way up the coast through Grossmorn Park, over to Labrador for an overnight, and up to the northern tip before it heads back down through the park and over to Gander, which of course is the home of the 9/11 heroes for sure. After that, we'll be making our way in towards the Avalon Harbor. We'll be stopping at Torn Gate, which is the oldest and one of the best preserved towns in all of North America, actually. We're going to have lots of time for boat tours, for hikes, some evening entertainment, definitely in the works, and some very special dinners that we have planned as well. The tour will end up in St. John's, so we'll have a couple of nights there. So we have a full day to explore St. John's, half a day of time on our own to really poke around because it's a beautiful city just to walk and explore and sort of run the history full circle by the time we've gone through the whole program. So to give you some idea of cost on this, we went through a very interesting process. We sent it out to two partners that we work with, one which is a company by the name of McCarthy's Party. It's a local company. They've been in business a long time, and their guides are educated but fun, really lots of fun. So the feedback we get from our clients that we send there, which is quite a few clients, is that they're just a great company to work with. And the price that they came up with for 14 to 17 guests was about $6,000 per person. Not inexpensive. That's close to what we pay for our European trips, as you know. So we went through the exercise of thinking about the possibility of buying seats on an escorted tour. So that would be a big bus that could take anywhere from 30 to 40 seats, and Women with Wings would just take 10 of those seats. We would, of course, have to follow the program and stay in the same accommodation that the big tour uses, but we could use our free time to plan our own events and personalize it that way. And we just thought it was important to go through this and see whether people are just looking for cheap and cheerful and be willing to have a lesser standard of accommodations and fewer inclusions, or whether we really do want to get back to the Women with Wings experience. So to put that in perspective, we would be looking at something like $6,000 for a tour of 14 to 17 ladies and a cost of about $4,000 for a seat on a big bus tour that would be one night less and fewer inclusions. So we're very interested to know how you feel about that. We're ready to go with both of them. We've tentatively bought seats on that bus in early July, and we can book any date that we need to for June if we decide to do small group tours. So with that said, we have a couple of questions for you. Anna?
Perfect. Thank you so much. Just going to launch this poll for approximately a minute, if you wouldn't mind answering. The anticipation is killing me. Here we go. Let's see what everyone had to say.
Oh, very interesting.
Very.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So thank you for that. That's really, really helpful moving forward for sure. So, you know, the very first Women with Wings trip all those years ago was actually a bus trip to Seattle. And really all it was shopping, wine, partying, visiting. It was just a wonderful, wonderful trip and a great way to sort of launch Women with Wings. And when we were doing the run through the other night and realizing that Dr. Bonnie has given us the go ahead to travel in BC, we thought we'd just throw out the idea of doing a 3-night visit to Victoria in September of this year. 3-night trip to Victoria in September of this year. So we're thinking of a really nice hotel, something like the Oak Bay Beach Resort, which actually I'm going to be visiting myself this weekend. And we'd include, you know, 1 or 2 excursions and have happy hour and meals and just an opportunity to get together and reconnect. For the ladies that are on their own, it's a way to get traveling maybe that much sooner. And we're wondering how you feel about that, if that's something that you might be interested in. So here's another question for you. Okay. This is such valuable information, really. I can't thank you enough, for sure. We've had lots of information from lots of people tonight. We hope that you've enjoyed seeing the team and hearing what everybody's up to. We're all looking forward to climbing back into planes and onto boats and getting the world moving again. We do need to hear from you personally if you're interested in any of these tours. So we're asking you to email us, either Hannah or myself. I'm sure you have the email addresses. And just let us know so that we can make sure that you're amongst the first to get the information as it rolls out. We are going to start updating the website on a more regular basis now, so you can keep an eye on that. And as tours are ruled out, that is, that we've got prices and dates, we will send an e-blast out to everybody as well. So that is, that's about all I have to say, other than to say thank you to our amazing Women with Wings team, whose passion and talent and friendship mean the world to me. And with that, we say welcome back. Good night.